Hey beautiful people, you're welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be learning how to cut and sew this stylish office dress that is fitted with front slits and a button down as details. So if this is something you'd like to learn, you want to stay tuned and subscribe. If you're yet to subscribe, if you're a returning subscriber, thank you. This is Sew with Naomi and you're welcome to my channel. To make this dress, we'll be needing your fabric, your button, scissors, and every other basic thing you need to make a dress. So for this dress, I made use of 2 yards of crepe. I had to manage that 2 yards, so you should be needing like 2.5 to 3 yards depending on your size. So this crepe is a stretchy one. That's what helped. So it's stretchy, and then I used 2 yards of this crepe, as I said. So the measurements needed for this dress are on the screen. You need your shoulder, your bust, your half length, your waist circumference, waist to hip, waist to knee, full length of the dress, your sleeve length, and also your round sleeve. We'll be starting from the down part, that is the skirt part. To do that, we'll have to put our fabric on fold, and then we'll be subtracting our half length from the full length. So the full length of the dress I'm working with is 44. When I subtract the half length of 18 inches, I'll be left with 42. Then I added 2 inches for the hemming of the down and joining it back to the half length. So I have 44 inches for the down part. And then for the fold, which is into 2, I have my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1.5 for my seam allowance. So we'll be starting with the waist. For the waist, we are going to impute our waist measurements divided by 4. So my waist circumference is 30, divided by 4 is 7.5. But because the fabric is stretchy and I want it a bit snugly on the body, fitted, I'm going to be removing that 0.5. So I'll be using 7 inches on the waist instead of 7.5. So I'm going to mark 7 inches. And then I'm going to locate my hip line, my waist to hip line, which is around 9 inches. Then I'm going to add back the half inch I'll be using to join the skirt to the upper part. So I'm going to mark 9.5, and I'm going to take my hip measurement at that point. So my hip measurement is 42, divided by 4 is 10.5. I'll also be removing the 0.5, so I'll be taking 10 on that hip line. Then I'm going to mark my waist to knee line. For the waist to knee, I'm going to be going up by 5 inches from my waist to knee line. So instead of taking my tightening on the knee line, I'm going to be taking it 5 inches above the knee line. So I'm going to remove, you can remove 1 inch or 2 inches depending on how fitted you want it at the knee. So I just went in by 1 inch because I don't want it too tight at the knee. Even if it's a stretchy dress, I don't want it too tight. So I went in by 1 inch at the waist to knee and did the same thing at the hemline. So I'm adding my seam allowance of 1.5. I'm using 1.5 for the side seam allowance. So that is just what I am adding here. After this, we'll be connecting the lines from the waist to the hip, from the hip to the knee line, and straight down to the hem. So remember to blend all your curves to be so you won't have a sharp edge. So at the center front line, I came down by 1 inch and connected it back to my waistline to give it a bit of a curve at the waist. Then after this, we are going to be cutting it out. Okay, so after cutting it a bit, I realized that I had made a grave mistake. Yeah, so remember that the front of this dress is supposed to have a slit. Yes, I totally forgot, so I dropped. After thinking and thinking, I remembered I had 1.5 for the side seam, so I decided to split it into two, and then I used 0.75 for the center front and then 0.75 for the side seam. So that was what I did. I just marked 0.75 all the way down, and then I'm going to be using that as the allowance for the slit in front. So I'll just mark that down and then make a straight line. Then we'll be cutting that off and we are done with the front. Yes, I didn't put any darts on the skirt. There was no need for that. Fabric was stretchy and there was really no need for the darts. So it's a dartless skirt and it's still going to fit. So after this, we'll be cutting the back. Okay, so for the back, we'll be putting our fabric on fold also, and then we're going to make sure we have our hip measurement by 4 plus seam allowance and also 1 inch for zipper allowance. So I just marked the 1 inch for zipper allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and then mark my 9.5 for my waist to hip line, then also mark my waist to knee line, or the above knee line rather. Then on my waist, I'm going to go ahead and mark my waist measurement, which is 7 inches, and then I'm going to add the 1.5 for seam allowance, sorry, 0.5. remember we later made it 0.5, so 0.5. so here also I'm marking 10 inches, then I'm going to add the 0.5 for the seam allowance. Then for my waistline, I went in by 0.75 to tighten the waist to avoid zipper bulge. So I added back the 0.75 to the side. So it's going to help the back zipper to relax more at the back. So if you don't do that, try it and see the difference. So you can see I'm now going to remark my 1 inch for my zipper line, for my zipper allowance. So I'm going to connect it back to my hip line like that. I also like to come down by ½ inch to also help to reduce zipper bulge, especially with this kind of fabric that's stretchy. So try and do that. Then we are going to be connecting from the waist to the hip. Now that connection is not correct, but I'll be correcting it later. So at the knee line, I'm not going to just take the 1 inch on one side. I'm going to be splitting it ½ inch at the center back and ½ inch at the side, so to have that nice shape at the back. So after that, I impute my 9 inches and then my 0.5 for seam allowance. So I'm going to be connecting it from the knee to the hip line and from the hip line to the waist. So I'll be doing the correct markings. Yes, so that's the correct line. Okay, so after this, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did on the knee line. I'll do the same thing on the hemline. I'm going to go in by ½ inch from the center back and then mark my 9 inches, and then I'm going to add my 0.75 for seam allowance and then come back and remark my 1 inch for zipper allowance. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. So you go in by ½ inch from your center back. You're going to mark whatever you use, and then you're going to add your seam allowance. Please do not forget, because we are drafting directly on the fabric. So I'm going to be connecting this back from the knee line to the hemline with a straight line. Also at the center, we'll connect it from the knee to the hem. So what I was doing is just marking out my 1 inch zipper allowance back, so I don't forget. So this is it. This is all for the back. We'll just cut this out. Please, if you've been watching up until this point, remember to give this video a thumbs up. If you are yet to subscribe, do well to subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you always get notified each time I post a new video. So we are going to go ahead and sew this. We'll be leaving like about 7 to 8 inches for the zipper allowance, and then we are going to sew the rest closed. So for the front, I'm just going to mark waist to knee. We are going to be sewing from the waist up to that point. The rest will be left open for the slits. So you measure from your waist to your knee line, or however how long the length of the slits that you want, and then sew it. So now we'll be working on the upper bodice. So for the bodice, I decided to draft it on paper so we can see it clearly, even though we can do it directly on our fabric. So we'll just first of all establish our straight line, which will serve as our shoulder line. So on the shoulder line, we are going to input our shoulder measurement divided by 2. So mine is 15, divided by 2 is 7.5. So we are going to mark that. From the shoulder line, we are going to come down by your armhole depth. So for mine, it is 9 inches. To get your depth of armhole, you are going to be dividing your bust circumference by 6, and then you add 2.5 to it. So we are going to mark a straight line and then connect the shoulder line down. From the shoulder line, you are going to come down by 1.5 for our front shoulder slope, and then we'll be marking our neck measurements. I'll be using the neck width of 3 inches and a neck depth of 3 inches. So I'll be connecting this with the curve ruler. Just give it a nice curve. After that, we are going to connect the shoulder slope from the neck point to the shoulder point. So just connect this. Okay, so after this, we are going to shoulder line, go up by 3 inches and then you go in by 0.75. Then on the chest line, I'm going to input my bust measurement, which is 9.25, but I removed the 0.25 and I just used 9 inches. And then I'm going to connect it from the bust measurement to the 0.75 I went in by to the slope, shoulder slope. So I'm going to mark my bust point and then my half length plus 0.5 inches to join it back. So that's 18.5. So I don't forget to add it on my fabric. So I just added it to the pattern, and then I'm going to cross arc the lines. So the next thing we are going to do now is input our darts. I'm going to go ahead and put your bust span measurement. Mine is 4 inches. I'm going to mark it on the waistline and on the bust point line and connect in a straight line. So for the darts, I'm going to be using 0.75 on both sides. So that will be a total of 1.5 inches for the darts. So 0.75 on both sides for the darts leg. And then I'm going to connect it to the bust point. After this, I'm going to go ahead and mark my waist measurements. So remember, we used 7 inches for the skirt, so I'm going to be using same measurement for the upper part. So I'm going to mark 7 inches. Then I'm going to replace the dart which we took of 1.5. I'm going to add it back to the measurements so we don't have a shortage. So that is it. I'm going to be connecting it to the bust measurements. After doing this, we know that the front half length and the back are not the same. So the difference of mine is 2 inches because my front half length is 18 and my back half length is 16. So from my bust points, I came down by 2 inches for the bust dart. That is also going to help me to make the sides of the front and back equal. So before we cut this out, we need to make sure that we fold the darts so that we can blend our lines and also avoid shortage when we are sewing. So I'm just going to go back and then connect this properly with the darts closed. So I'm just going to redraw this line before I cut it off. I'm going to be doing the same thing for the bust darts. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the bust dart. I'm going to be folding it and then I'm going to blend the side line. So this will help us not to have any form of shortage on the fabric. So at this point I decided to just add my seam allowance on the pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 0.75. remember that's what we used for the sewing allowance for the lower part. So I just added 0.75 as my side seam allowance, and then I'm going to rule a straight line and we are going to cut this out. Also, I decided to just add the whole seam allowance round. So I also did that for the armhole and the shoulder and the neck. Okay, so for the front slit or the front opening, I went in by 1 inch from the center front on the neckline, neck depth, and then I came down by 4 inches and then I connected it like a V, slanted. So just slant it from the 3 inches, from the 1 inch inwards to the 4 inch downwards. So I'll be adding a seam allowance of 0.25 on the pattern and the same thing on the fabric. That's what I'll be using to join the facing of that part. So I'm just going to connect it back. After this, I would just highlight the seam allowance and then cut this off. Then we are going to work on the back pattern. Here's the pattern for the back. So I have my shoulder line. I also have my half length, which is 16 inches plus 0.5 to join it back to the lower part. I have 16.5. Then the next thing I have is my shoulder measurement divided by 2, same as the front, and my armhole depth, same as the front, that is 9 inches. Then for the shoulder slope, I used 1 inch for the back shoulder slope. For the neck width, we maintained at 3 inches for the neck width, and for the neck depth, I used 1 inch for the neck depth. Then from the shoulder slope, you measure what you have left to your armhole depth, get the midpoint and go in by ½ inch. Then you make your armhole curve. So to do the back tightening, also to avoid zipper bulge, I'm going to go in by 0.75 at the center back line on the waist and connect it to the neck point to the 1 inch at the. Then I'm going to remark my 1 inch for zipper allowance. So this helps to eliminate any form of zipper bulge. Next, we are going to put our waist measurements, which is the same as what we used for the down, which is 7 inches. So, and then on the chest line, we are going to mark our bust circumference divided by 4. I used 9 in front, so we'll be using the same thing at the back, and then we'll add our seam allowance. So we used 0.75. I'll be using the same thing for the back. On the waistline, I'm going to be adding 1 inch for the darts and then add the 0.75 for the side seam allowance. and I will connect the line. So the next thing we are going to do is impute our bust span measurements in order for us to take our dart. So I'll be putting 4 inches. I'll mark 4 inches, and then I'm going to check what I have on the whole paper in order to have a straight line. So I have 5.75, so I'm going to mark that up there and then make a straight line. After that, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch from the chest line. So that is where the dart is going to stop, 1 inch below the chest line. So I'm going to share that 1 inch for the darts on both sides. That is ½ inch on both sides, 0.5 on both sides, and I'm going to connect to the 1 inch below the chest line. So I think this is about all for the back. We'll just add our seam allowance round, and also don't forget to close your dart before we cut this out. Okay, so this is our front and back pattern. We'll be transferring this to the fabric, cutting exactly how it is on fabric. So here it is, we have cut it on fabric. The next thing we want to do before we start sewing is to transfer our darts. So in order to know the points on which our darts are, I'm going to use this pin and show you a method by which you can transfer your dart from pattern to fabric. So you're going to pin all the points on the dart, the apex and the 2 dart legs. You're going to pin them and then turn the paper to the other side where you have the fabric, and then we're going to take our ruler and just connect the line. This is like a very simple method of transferring your darts. After doing the waist dart, we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the bust dart. So just go ahead and do the same pinning method on the dart legs for the bust dart, and then we'll use our ruler and chalk the line on the fabric. So after that, we'll also be transferring it to the other side of the fabric too. So we're just going to remove our paper totally. We'll take off the pattern paper totally, and then so we'll be able to transfer the dart from other side to where it is needed. The next thing we're going to do is cut the facing for the front. So I have this piece of fabric. I'm just going to place it under the front bodice, and then I'm going to trace out the neckline. So I'll measure what I have at the shoulder. I think I have about 2.5. So I'm just going to use that as the width of the facing. Then I'm going to trace out the neckline and cut it out. After cutting it out, I'm just going to shape the facing and cut it out also. So that's what we are going to be using to turn the front neckline. So we are going to go sew the neck by ½ inch and then the slits by 0.25. Remember, that's what we left as the allowance on the pattern. So we'll be doing the same thing for the back. Cut out the facing for it, and then we'll go and sew it. So for the sleeve, we'll just be doing a basic sleeve. This is the remaining fabric that I had. Is about 17 inches. So for the cap height, I'm using 4 inches. For your cap height, to get your cap height, you divide your bust measurements by 12 and add 1 inch. So I have 4 inches for my cap height here. After getting the cap height, whatever you use as your armhole depth, you are going to mark it on the cap height. So I use 9 inches, so that's what I marked there, and then I'm going to mark a slanted line from the shoulder point to that armhole depth mark. And I'm going to get the midpoint, go up by ½ inch and come down by ½ inch, and just connect it. So after this, you do not need to add additional sleeve seam allowance. So everything, your seam allowance is added already. The next thing you want to do is mark your round sleeve measurements. So just place it and mark it appropriately, and then we're going to connect from our armhole to our sleeve and then cut it open. So for the sleeve, I had these other pieces left, so I just thought of using it as a band to increase the length of the sleeve. So I'm just going to join it when I'm sewing. Now I have gone ahead to join the front. This is the front. You can see the slit, so I've joined it in the middle, and then I have gone ahead to use hemming gum to press the slit down. Please endeavor to weave your fabric. So I just did it because this was a tutorial. So after that, I have sewn my darts for the front, the up bodice. So this is the dart. I've sewn the waist dart, I've sewn the bust dart, and I've also turned the neckline with the facing. So I've turned the neckline. So we're going to use the hemming gum to go and make it, iron it down. So now when you are joining the sides, you can see the way I'm folding my darts. The dart should face down. So this is hemming gum. For those who don't know what hemming gum is, so this is hemming gum. We're going to use it to go and make the slit parts to stay down properly, and then we are going to join every other thing. So I have joined the shoulder, the front and the back shoulder. So if you look closely, you will see that I have already ironed the neckline properly with the hemming gum, even for the back. So and then I've joined the lower parts to the upper parts of the dress. The next thing we are going to do now is go ahead to join the sides. Go ahead to join the sides, fix your zipper, fix your sleeve, fix your zipper and your sleeve, and then that should be all for this dress. So this is a very quick one, I know. So this is it. We're totally done with the dress. As you can see, all this needs is a good press. You can see the zipper. I used an invincible zipper, so that's like the best type of zipper to use for this dress, to conceal the zipper line. So this is it. This is the slit. Then I finished the down by sewing it. You can also use a hemming gum, but you can sew it also. We're actually done with the dress. The thing what is remaining is the buttons. So we'll go and hand stitch these buttons. We just place them randomly on the dress at whatever point we want to place them, and then we are going to use our hand, needle and thread to stitch it down, and we are done. So this is what the dress looks like. I am so in love with this dress, with the fit and everything. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, share, turn on your post notification so that you get notified each time we post a new video. So I used the beauty feature on my phone to take these pictures. Look at look at the shape. All right guys, so I'm off. See you in the next video. Bye.